Welcome to How to Cook That. I'm Ann Reardon and this is an episode of Cake Rescue where we take cake fails from across the internet and show you how to rescue them. Let's see what we've got first.
I thought I'd make a cake.
It's Brickman! For those of you who aren't in Australia, this is Brickman from Lego Masters. He makes amazing Lego structures for the show and normally as well. So let's see what happens with his cake.
And nothing better than making a cake. So I've gone for the banana caramel deluxe.
Sounds
now,
yummy.
On television, I'm known as Brickman. I can tell you why I'm not called Cake Man. Are you ready for this?
Oh no.
Look at that ganache and stuff. Better stick to my day job.
Okay, so that ganache looked way too runny. With ganache, the amount of cream you add to chocolate changes the consistency of the ganache and obviously the temperature of it. So you need to let it cool down to let it thicken up. So I'm going to try and find the banana caramel cake. That sounded very specific. We'll try and find that recipe and see what's going on. I found the banana caramel recipe, and if we look at the picture, they have two thick layers of cake and a frosting over the top, and it looks like a drizzle of ganache down the sides there. If we have a look at the recipe, they've got a banana cake. I don't like recipes where they make you whip the butter and sugar and then they add a hot ingredient to it, which is just going to melt the butter. That means there was no point creaming the butter and the sugar. You might as well have melted the butter. I've got a different banana cake recipe that I know works, so I'm going to swap it for that one. I'll put my banana cake recipe on the How to Cook That website for you so you can make it too. Then if we scroll further down, they've got the ganache and they've made it using 190 grams of Cadbury caramel and then 200 grams of cream. That's pretty much equal portions of cream to chocolate, which is going to make a very thin, runny ganache. Let me show you. In this first bowl, let's put an equal amount of cream to chocolate by weight. Then in the second bowl, let's use a ratio of 1 part chocolate to half the amount of cream. And then in the final bowl, let's put 1 part chocolate to 1/3 the amount of cream. Once they are all whisked together and they're still warm, they haven't had a chance to cool yet, but you can already see this one has 1/3 of the amount of cream to chocolate. And this one has 1/2 of the amount of cream to chocolate. And this is the one that has equal amounts of cream to chocolate, like in the cake recipe. And you can see that it's much thinner. The recipe does say to cool in the refrigerator, stir occasionally, and it will gradually thicken over time. It can take around 2 hours to get the desired texture. Well, I've left these overnight, and the recipe one is still really runny. It would make a great sauce, but it's not going to be a good filling for a cake. It's just not thick enough, and if you tried, you'd end up with something like Brickman did. The one that had a half ratio is nice and thick, look at that, and the one that is 1/3 of the amount of cream to chocolate is, of course, even thicker. The directions did not say to whip it up, but I like to whip ganache when I'm using it for frosting. And if you look at both of these thicker ones here, they whip up nicely into a really smooth, spreadable frosting. In contrast to that, if you try and whip up the thin one, you end up with a really soft whipped cream texture. You couldn't pipe it or use it between layers. It's not going to hold its shape. And if you keep whipping it, trying to get it to thicken, it doesn't get any firmer. What it does do is it splits into the liquid and the fat, and you get this lumpy mess. So a bad recipe was responsible for this cake fail. If the recipe had have had the right amount of cream to chocolate, you would have had this nice, thick, spreadable ganache that you could use between the layers and even to cover the whole cake if you wanted to. The only thing the thin ganache is useful for is piping a drip around the edge of the cake. And if you look at their original photo, it looks like they used it for that. So I'm not sure why the recipe said it would become thick. All right, what's next?
This is sugar-free cherry Coke and sugar-free.
If you're going to film fake hack videos that are really dumb expect dumb things to happen to you, like getting covered in cake mix. Obviously, don't try and mix it up in the box using an electric mixer. What's next? There is a volunteer program. It's a nonprofit. It is called For Goodness Cakes. For Goodness Cakes is an organisation where they pair volunteers who are willing to bake with families who have a kid who has a birthday, but for whatever reason they can't provide a cake for them. So I'll be baking a cake for a girl, and she requested Oreo. Putting the batter in the pans. You know how I feel about shaped cake pans? I don't love them, not at all, but let's see how these turn out. I also went ahead and greased those pans, and I put in a little bit of cocoa powder. I dusted them with cocoa powder as best as I could, so cocoa fingers crossed. Why would you dust them with cocoa powder? Here comes the dumbest moment of my life. Oh, she had rubber gloves on. She didn't have baking gloves. Oh no, she just burned her fingers. Oh. She was doing such a kind thing too. If you get a burn, run it under cold water. The burn does get worse over the next sort of 5-10 minutes. So if you don't run it under cold water and take the heat out of it, you're going to end up with a worse burn than if you just take the time out to sit there with your hand under the running water. All right, here we go, tipping out the cakes. Let's see. It's completely stuck in the pan. Come on. No! Come out. Oh, no. That cake pan has so many little indents and details. You can't line it with baking paper, and it's got so many places it could get stuck. I am not surprised. Cakes just have that ability to take you from happy to just so devastated you want to cry. I am now going back to the store. I'm gonna get another cake mix, and then we're gonna try again. Legend. Spraying the pans really well. It's a good option, that's what I would do, but the cocoa powder, I don't understand the cocoa powder. Cocoa powder, when you cook it, doesn't go firm. It's not like when you add flour and the butter is gonna go firm, so it helps release it. Here we go. Oh, it came out of the pan. Okay. Well, not great. I was up cleaning this kitchen till 2 in the morning. This cake, nothing has gone right. This was the best I could do. That's pretty good. Physically and emotionally drained. She's done amazingly. She's rescued it there herself. It didn't look like a cookie to the level she wanted it to, so she's just covered the whole thing, put Oreos on top and sprinkles around the outside. I think she's done a fantastic job, and that just shows you how what you think is going to be a simple process, you can be tripped up. Like Brickman was tripped up by the recipe being wrong. I think she's been tripped up by the cake pan. I am going to try and track down that exact cake pan and see if I can buy one, and we'll do some experiments and check and see whether there was user error there or if this pan is just going to trip everybody up. I managed to get one on eBay, and it says our proprietary Gold Touch non-stick coating guarantees foolproof release and easy cleanup. Well, let's see if that's true. Their instructions on the back say to grease the pan and then coat it with cocoa powder. So now I know why Cooper was doing that every time. I'm only going to put cocoa powder on one of the pans because I suspect that is what's causing the issue. This is the one that had the cocoa powder. I can see the cocoa powder around the edge, and as I always tell you, give it a bit of a shake first to check if it's loose before you tip it over. This one is well and truly stuck. I'll try and give it a bit of a loosen around the edges here, just trying to push it away from the edge and try again. Still nothing. So much for guaranteed foolproof release. Let's try the other one. Oh, that one's loose. All right, let's flip that one. So that's the one without the cocoa powder. It hasn't stuck to the pan, but the word cookie is not really readable and I'm not loving it. Back to this one. The instructions telling you to put cocoa powder over the tin has made the cake stick to the tin, and eventually when I did get it out, this is what it looked like. And the cocoa powder also made the tin really, really hard to clean compared to the one that just had the spray oil. So after much scrubbing and cleaning to get it back to the beginning, I want to try the recipe that they actually gave on the back of the box instead of a cake mix. It makes a runnier batter, so it should hopefully get into all of those little areas and have less air bubbles on the design than the other one did, but there's not as much batter as the box cake mix had, so I'm concerned that it's not going to fill the tins. Once it's baked, the tins, as expected, are not quite full enough. I didn't use cocoa powder, so it's not stuck to the tin, which is great, and it does look better than last time, but I still don't love the look of this. It's not thick enough in the middle because it wasn't full, so I'm going to have to add ganache and chopped Oreos to bulk up that middle section. Cover that in vanilla buttercream, and I'm going to add a few more Oreos and then the other cake on top. So once again, the recipe is at fault here. The recipe they gave didn't have enough cake to fill the tins, and the bad instructions set you up for failure, telling you to put cocoa powder on the tins. All right, let's watch the next one. We decided to make the Roblox face cake. They've cut the details out, so they've made themselves a template. Filled the sponge with custard, added cream, looks good so far. Hang on a minute, they've covered the cream cake with fondant. You can't put fondant over cream, it's got too much water in the cream. You need like a buttercream or a ganache underneath it, not. Anyway, let's see what happens. I don't actually think that looks too bad. They think it's a fail. I mean, obviously it's not perfect. It's not what they had in mind of what they wanted it to look like at the end, but it's not too bad. I can see there that the black fondant is cracked and it looks like it's got icing sugar in it. And you could see earlier they were mixing their own black fondant. Black fondant is really hard to make because you need to add so much black to make that white look black and not grey, and then it gets very sticky. So then you can tell they've added icing sugar to try and make it less sticky, and that's now made it too dry. If you have black fondant that's too dry, you can just add some spray cooking oil or a little bit of cooking oil into it and massage it in until it is nice and pliable again before you roll it out and use it. But with this one, I would completely change how they've done it. I understand if you want a nice, yummy sponge cake and you want to have custard and maybe some strawberries and some cream and all of that tastes delicious. So I can totally understand if that's the type of cake you want, but then you don't want to cover it in fondant. The great thing about fondant is you can use it ahead of time, like up to a month ahead. So that takes the stress of decorating away from the day of the party or the day before the party if you're doing it then. So you could make a face to go on top of a cake a whole month before the party and then just put it on when you're ready. Let me show you how to do that. Roll out your white fondant and cut a circle. You can use a plate as the template for that circle. Then put a piece of baking paper over the top and then put the printout of the face you want on top of that. Then draw where the details go, and you're just trying to press hard enough to indent the fondant, and that will make it easier to get the positions of everything correct. You don't have to guess, you can just put it right where it goes. Rather than cutting out a template and trying to cut around these thin black lines, it's much easier to roll fondant into a snake when you need a line. Then you just put that over your template and cut it to length. Then using a little bit of water, add it into place. Continue to do that with all of the lines, adding a little bit of water underneath each piece to make it stick. Then you can just leave that to dry out. As I said, you can make it a month ahead. And then just before the party, peel off the baking paper and add it to the top of your cake. Easy and stress-free. Let's move on to the next cake fail. Oh, she looks sad.
So sometimes it does happen that something flops. And this is what happens when you overmix a carrot cake. This is called over mixing. It flops. Still tastes nice though. You can see I've tasted it.
Overmixing a cake doesn't usually cause it to flop in the middle like that. If you've been watching Cake Rescue for a while, you will know that that is caused by taking the cake out of the oven before it is cooked all the way through. You need to put a knife into the center and then pull it out and check that it is totally dry. If there's any of the gooey cake mixture still on it, leave it in to bake for longer, because ovens are all different, so the temperature time given on your recipe may not be exactly the same for your oven as it was for the oven of the person who wrote the recipe. Just leave it in until it is done. If it's getting a bit overcooked on the top, just add some foil on top, leave it in there. This is not from overmixing. Overmixing is not good for cakes either. I'm going to do an experiment for you and show you the difference rather than just telling you the difference. If you overmix a cake, you're going to develop the gluten in the flour, which is what you're doing when you're kneading bread. Great in bread, not good in cakes. I have 2 bowls with the exact same ingredients in them here. And for the first one, I'm going to mix together the eggs with some of the sugar and the carrots just to break up those egg yolks and whites. And then fold the whole mixture together, mixing only until you can't see any more flour. Tip that into a lined, greased cake tin and it's ready to go. Now for the other bowl, I'm going to mix it on medium speed for 5 minutes. And this is way too long for a cake. It's really going to develop the gluten in the flour. Now we're going to tip that into an identical lined tin. And then we're going to bake them side by side so the cooking conditions are identical. This is the hand-folded cake, and this one was beaten for the 5 minutes. It has not sunk. Overmixing does not make cakes sink in the middle. But if we look inside, this one is soft and it has a nice crumb, whereas this one is stodgy looking. It's rubbery, it's chewy, it's just not the right texture for a cake. It's not soft, it's solid. The hand-folded one is airy and light, and if you try and pick it up, it is soft and it is beautiful. That carrot cake recipe was of course from my cookbook, so make sure you don't overmix it because you want nice, fluffy, soft cake. All these recipes have been tested and will work. You're not going to have the issue that Brickman had with a recipe that's not tested and doesn't work. These are my tried and tested recipes. And this week the cookbook actually comes out in paperback as well, so you can choose whether you want the hardcover or the paperback version. You can get this one on Amazon in the US and the UK, and this one everywhere worldwide. If you've already got it, if you've already bought one, please make sure you leave a review on Amazon because that helps me and it also helps others who are trying to decide what to get. This makes a beautiful Christmas gift for anyone. If you're like me and you like to do your Christmas shopping early, cross someone off your list and get a copy of the book. With thanks to my amazing patrons for all of your support and all of your beautiful comments over on Patreon. It is a lovely community, so if you'd like to join them, head over to patreon.com/H2CT to check that out. Make it a great week by being kind to others, and I will see you on Friday.